Doctor Who Reviewed. Doctor Who returns from its mid-season break with the episode Let's Kill Hitler. We're going to be discussing the episode with spoilers, so if you haven't seen it already, now is the time to exit this video. What I found fascinating about the premise of this episode is that it was centered around the Doctor and his companions. Usually we have the Doctor walking into a situation filled with strangers who have a problem and he needs them to trust him in order for him to solve it. And you know, there is a backstory or a B-plot involving the Doctor and the companions, but this time it's just mainly the Doctor and the companions. Which pretty much means that it's a rubbish starting point to get into watching Doctor Who, so if people haven't already gotten into the series and don't understand who the characters are, they're just going to be massively confused if they start here. I had such high expectations in the beginning, what with the episode's title, Let's Kill Hitler, and Mel's holding the Doctor at gunpoint, and suggesting that they do what people sensibly think you should do with the power of time travel, which is to go back in time and kill bad people. But that's not what Doctor Who is about, so I think the big disappointment when we realise that Hitler's going to be locked in the cupboard for the rest of the episode isn't sort of anger or disappointment that the Doctor isn't going to try and kill Hitler, but disappointment that time travel doesn't function sensibly in the Doctor Who universe. We can't go back in time and save JFK and kill Hitler because those aren't adventures, those are missions. And the team inside the Justice Department vehicles aren't having adventures, they're following protocol. I think it's an interesting question of whether or not the Tesselecta can be considered villains because they're using time travel for a sensible and intended purpose of going back in time and trying to make people feel better by rectifying evil in the world and punishing villains. But that's not to say that they can't inflict harm. I think that having the power to travel through time is something that the Doctor grapples with a lot because he, a lot of the time, despite his good intentions, does make a mess of things and does carry an enormous burden of guilt. And I think the Tesselecta is no different. So that's not to say that they're not going to wind up being unintentional villains later on in the series. And I actually have a theory about the Tesselecta, sort of like how we had the Gangers as an explanation for Amy being kidnapped and not being really Amy, even though we thought she was Amy. I have this suspicion that the Doctor, when he dies in The Impossible Astronaut, is going to be a Tesselecta Doctor being controlled by the Doctor inside of like the Tesselecta, which isn't totally impossible because we did see in the episode Let's Kill Hitler that the Tesselecta was able to exhibit normal signs of human life, so there's no reason it couldn't exhibit normal signs of Time Lord life or possible regeneration or anything like that. So I'm just putting that out there as something that was going through my head when I realized that we could have humanoid robots that were controlled or piloted by the very people whom they were meant to look like. As my friend Rosie over at TARDIS-tacular said, this season of Doctor Who relies on the assumption that you care about River's song. And the thing is, I do care about River's song, but not as much as I care about the other central characters. I think we've got Rory really marginalised, especially as he's come into his own as this fantastic accidental hero. He's like the Neville Longbottom of Doctor Who, not like the nerdy Neville, but Neville when he becomes a total badass at the end of Deathly Hallows. And I'm just like, go Rory, wait River, get out of the way, you're crowding the screen and I can't see Rory. And I'm nervous for Rory that he's not going to be around for such a long time because I know we're going to have River's song for ages because she's such a central part of the Doctor's existence. But Rory... And I did really like the way we got so many answers in this episode, but I feel like it was at the expense of this being a standalone or of us getting a plot line like, hey, let's kill Hitler. I do think the brilliant irony of the title was that instead of killing Hitler, they inadvertently saved Hitler and then just shoved him in a closet and forgot about him. I think that was definitely a brilliant move by Moffat of pointing out to us that Doctor Who is not about seeking justice or revenge, it's about adventures through time and space. I love that we got to see young Amelia Pond and young Rory and how they grew up together. I thought that was really sweet, really touching, and I love them bringing back the actress who plays little Amelia Pond. I thought that was phenomenal. And it was interesting to see them grow up with Mel's, or Melody Pond, all along. But one thing that leaves me wondering is just how much of a negative influence the Doctor is having on their lives. I mean, he's essentially taken away the opportunity for them to raise their own child. Growing up with someone really isn't the same thing as raising them, and it's just so problematic. I mean, he has interfered so much with them, and when the voice interface shows all of the previous companions and he just says guilt, guilt, more guilt, I'm nervous that Amy and Rory are going to provide him the most guilt of all. That said, I know I am supposed to cheer on River's song as this fantastic, like, female character who's just absolutely badass with her guns and her attitude and her swagger and her hyper-sexualized dialogue and her phenomenal curly hair, but it just seemed a little overdone to me. the quick transition from her being like brainwashed, like death machine of the silence, to being River Song, the apparent love of the Doctor's life, as we now, I suppose, have to take for granted. I would have loved to see River Song stay as a villain for a bit longer and to have her be the Doctor's adversary and nemesis, and sort of Amy and Rory appalled by this, but knowing that she does turn into a hero and an ally in the future, and her sort of working at odds against the Doctor. But we are mid-season, so I guess it's too late for that, but it was a bit incredible that in the span of like a very short period of time, like a half hour, she goes through such changes. I did think the line was brilliant where she said that she was going to take the age down just a little bit to freak people out. I thought that was a really clever explanation of sort of discrepancies in shooting seasons. I thought that was just like, oh, Stephen Moffat, like, you are a clever, clever man. And I did laugh out loud a little bit during the episode, so I suppose that does mask the bits of disappointment and like disillusion that I had with the overall arc and what happens. I loved how the evil sonic jellyfish creatures were so classic Who. They were like, please remain calm while I kill you. And I feel like those are the best moments of Who, is where there is sort of an irony and a humor coming from the cold methodicism of these killer robots. Like where you're laughing as you watch the characters you love in peril. I love the Doctor's top hat and tails, his sonic cane. Seriously, somebody get me a sonic cane right now. I really want one. And I wonder if there is a time discrepancy that needs to be accounted for in future episodes, or if I'm just imagining things of what happens between the voice interface of little Amelia Pond saying fish fingers and custard and the Doctor showing up with just minutes left to live when he had 30 minutes before, dressed like he's just come from Amy and Rory's wedding of all places. It's really bizarre because they keep making references to weddings throughout the episode of let's get married, I'm not really one for weddings, I danced at the wedding with all the women, they were wonderful, the men a little bit not so much, and I'm just like, that was what you wore at the wedding, wasn't it, Doctor? So I'm not quite sure what's going on there with all of the wedding references. I just know that, like, I love it when the Doctor has costume changes. That coat at the beginning was phenomenal. Eat your heart out, Benedict Cumberbatch. At the end, I think I really did adore the episode, and though I did have my disappointments with it, and I'm sort of waiting for River Song to just quietly walk to the corner of the stage for once this season. Well done, Moffat. Phenomenal performance by Matt Smith and especially by Alex Kingston. And I can't wait to see what's going to happen next week. You can let me know what you thought of the episode in the comments or over on the forums at Doctor Who Online. Alright, bye!